Welcome back, everybody. We've seen some really cool things that ChatGPT can do, and I'm sure you're already thinking of some other things to try. But beyond games and math problems and trivia questions, how else might you use this in the real world and in your job? To get some ideas, let's first talk about the OpenAI APIs, or application programming interfaces, which you can get to at openai.com/API. Using these APIs, you can integrate all of this great AI functionality into your own website or app. And not just for ChatGPT, but other services like DALL-E that we saw earlier for images. If you scroll down, you've got some getting started and documentation here, and some examples of what you could do. All the way down at the bottom, you'll also see some very popular applications that have been built with these APIs, things like GitHub's Copilot product that helps you write code, and Duolingo for language translation. So ChatGPT itself is pretty cool and all, but to really harness the power of this generative AI, these APIs are where it's at. So let's look at some specific ways that you could apply these. Starting with customer service chatbots. These have been around for years, but in my experience at least, there's a lot of room for improvement. ChatGPT itself can be thought of as a chatbot, but you can also customize it and use it for your own applications, making it your own super smart chatbot for your own needs. Virtual writing assistants. Here again, you could incorporate this into your own site for your customers, or you could just use it directly in the browser. If you're hunting for a job, maybe you get some help creating your resume cover letter. Give it some information about the job you're looking for, the kind of experience you have, and that you're really excited to work for this company. And let's see what we get. Okay, and here's a boilerplate letter that you could take and customize, highlighting your coding bootcamp, your experience, your internship, and how you're really excited about this position. Definitely a good starting point. Language translation is another really popular use case. We can give it a phrase or a paragraph or an entire story and say that we want to translate it into another language. So there's how I would order my croissant and black coffee if I were in France. And finally, you can use this to generate creative content, things like stories, poems, songs, and so on. So how about write a limerick about learning how to program? And here we have a poem about Ted learning how to code. Pretty impressive. We just covered some broad applications for ChatGPT and generative AI, but let's look at some more specific use cases for folks who work with data in their day-to-day jobs. Starting with automation, this can mean a lot of different things depending on your job, but for me, there's some low-hanging fruit that comes to mind, things like formulas and exact syntax of your code. For example, in Microsoft Excel, I vaguely recall how to use the VLOOKUP function, but I can never quite remember the syntax, so I could ask ChatGPT to write an Excel formula that looks up values in column A that match values in column B. And here I get the VLOOKUP, along with an explanation for how this works and what parameters go where. Regular expressions or regexes are also super tedious to me. I can never remember them. So we could get some help with that. Write a regex that fits a US phone number. Here we get the regex. We could copy that code into our code and then an explanation of how this works. Content creation is another area where you could use ChatGPT. We've seen some of this already with the blog posts and such, but in day-to-day life, maybe it's something like an email. So write an email to my boss that asks for feedback on a deck I created. The deck is just a draft and was created based on notes from last week's meeting. Use a relaxed tone and include a joke. Let's see what we get here. Okay, here's our email. We've got a subject line, describes that we're looking for feedback on the deck from last week's meeting. And we even have a joke in here about salad dressing. So obviously something you would want to update to match your own tone. But if you don't like writing emails, this might be a good accelerator for you. Another way to use this is to write code, all kinds of code. We're going to go back to an example we were using earlier. I've got it in a different chat though. So we'll have it regenerate a sample data set for us and then ask to write a Python script to analyze the data, remove outliers, and then visualize the sales price using a histogram. Okay, here's our data set. You see the format it's given us is CSS. We might actually want this in a CSV format or something. We saw how we could refine that earlier. But then down here is the sample Python script complete with code comments and everything to read in the data, calculate things like the mean and the standard deviation of the sales price, remove outliers, and then visualize using a histogram. So you could grab this code, copy it, put it into your own code base, modify it, run it, whatever you need to do. So again, a really nice starting point. You also get a description down here of what's happening. That was Python. You can also use this for things like SQL statements. So we'll say, write a SQL statement to select these columns from the customers table, and then order by last name and then first name. And here's our SQL statement. And then the fourth use case is around your daily workflows. That again could mean many different things, but maybe you spend a lot of time trying to figure out other people's code or how to refactor code to make it better. Let's see if ChatGPT can help with that. Let's say you've taken over somebody else's code and you want a brief summary of what it does. So we're going to say, what does this code do? We'll paste in the code. And here we go. This code is a Python script that creates a Lambda function in Amazon Web Services using the Boto3 library. It goes through the various lines, tells us what's happening here, and how it would be triggered. Now, let's say you wanted to make the code better, or refactor it to make it more readable and concise. You also wanted to add some code comments. And voila, here's the refactored version. We've got some code comments saying it's more readable and concise. This particular example didn't have a ton of updates to it, but you can imagine if you had some really bloated spaghetti code, that kind of thing, ChatGPT could have a go at it and hopefully improve things for you. And then finally, as part of your daily workflow, maybe you're trying to decide between different technologies or different approaches. So let's ask about popular technologies for exploratory data analysis, get some pros and cons and some examples of how I might use them. Okay, we get two options here. One is pandas. We've got pros and cons for that. Second one is matplotlib, pros and cons there, and then some examples of what you can do with them. So hopefully with just this short demo, you realize just how powerful this is and all the different ways you could use it in your day-to-day job. It's really pretty amazing. In summary, while ChatGPT can be used for a lot of fun and kind of trivial things, it also has very real, practical applications out there in the world, and especially for technology jobs, whether it's writing code or automating tedious processes. So use it to get answers, to get you started, or to validate something that you're already thinking about. And with that, let's wrap up and talk about a few things that you can do next. First, I would say just go try it. You probably already have tons of ideas for how you could use ChatGPT, so just go give it a try. You can learn a lot just by using different prompts and seeing what kinds of answers you get. This is a very fast-moving and exciting space that will likely change quickly. So keep an eye on the blog at openai.com for the latest announcements and features. And then let me know how things are going. Go to the discussion tab for this course, drop me a note about all the cool things that you're learning, and also please let me know how I did on the course by giving it a rating. And with that, I'll say thank you so much for watching. I hope you found it helpful, and I wish you all the best in your ChatGPT and AI adventures.